He's wearing a gun holster. What does he think?
Let me lead this really quickly, by the way, before, because for some reason there are also a lot of defeatist conservatives out there who have.
I hate, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I am like one like facial malfunction away from looking so similar to Steven Crowder, and it truly frustrates me. Okay, like something happened in the genetic lottery where he looks like that and I look like this. It's so similar yet so far away, and nothing frustrates me more than this reality. Like, if I gain more weight, I just look like him, and it fucking sucks. It literally is just like, if my eyes were a little bit closer, or if I had like a double chin or something, if I had like a fatter face, I would literally look like him, and that hurts my fucking soul, dude. Like, it hurts my soul. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, you look like shit, but I kind of could look like that, and that's scary to me. That's so fucking scary.
Bought what the media have sold them. Let me tell you something first off. I want to be really.
I hope I don't sound like a whiny bitch like he did. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I know I'm from Canada, but Canadian healthcare is bad. Let me tell you something. Canadian healthcare is bad. It's bad. I'm built differently.
Really clear here. We do not know that Donald Trump has won. I want to make that very clear. There still is a very good chance that he's lost. Probably more likely than not. But we definitely don't know that Joe Biden has won. These are people who cannot be bothered to do their due diligence and do some research, so they just go, oh, well, AP called it. Oh, well, Fox News called it. Oh, well, CNN called it. So good.
Steven Crowder, the age-old. Steven Crowder hitting everybody with the age-old. Do your own research. And which is like, of course, don't do research and just follow my word and then take my word for it, please. That, like, bitch, you lied so openly about a photographer bringing in camera equipment to their own journalists that were live streaming the vote counting process. It became such a problem that, like, numerous agencies had to correct the record. Okay? Do your own research. Where did that take you? Your research is literally random phone footage, like found footage of like other idiots in your audience, like filming stuff to be like, look at this nefarious situation. His own research was basically yelling at a guy for not wearing a tie when he was, in his mind, stealing ballots.
Good enough for me. What is this? What would you have us do right now? The pinko commies have been steamrolling the streets. By the way, they've been burning down Biden rallies. Just so you know, what you want to just roll over and die?
Yeah, no, the pinko commies are burning down Biden rallies. So this is another thing I talked to some of my friends about. And now, I unfortunately do not have a lot of Trump supporters in my immediate family. I don't have any, actually, and I don't have a lot of like Trump supporters that I'm close friends with or can talk to. I think you know why, right? So unfortunately, I find that to be very unfortunate. You do not understand. I think that is truly unfortunate. No, I do, because, dude, come on. Why do you think I consume their media? Why do you think I watch them every fucking day? I do all of this because I need to understand where they're coming from. There's still 70 fucking million of them. Okay? Like, you have to understand what the opposition is thinking and where they're getting their information and how they operate and how they talk. But I was talking to friends who have family members who they can freely talk about these sorts of issues with. And there's a good chunk of especially boomers that fucking believe, unironically, that like the country is over, that like communism is taking root in this country, and that, you know, leftists are going to burn it to the ground. Leftists like myself, who of course control the Democratic Party, like, we're going to burn the country down. That's what they think. And I was trying to figure out, like, what's the next step? And I think maybe, like, maybe they're going to recognize in a couple months that, like, the country hasn't burned down, so they'll start paying attention to different shit. You know what I mean? They will always think socialism bad, you know, Democrat bad. But my hope is that they're going to recognize that like the country isn't on fire despite what everyone told them. And that usually has there's two different effects there. Hold on, I'm gonna put my table up, desk up. We're going up, baby. Okay, so there is two different outcomes of this. One is a widely observed outcome in cults, where people who believe in like you know, the suicide cult of like the world was going to end in Y2K, when it clearly didn't end after it, some members leave. But then the ones that stay behind get more emboldened and like more embedded into the cult, because now they've lived through that experience together, right? It's kind of like a sunk cost. Partially, it's kind of denial, sunk cost, and also just the assumption that like. I mean, not just the assumption, but like you've basically filtered out everyone from your life. That's why they always say with these QAnon conspiracists, like the worst thing you can do is separate them. Like you have to keep in touch with them. Even if you don't like constantly challenge their viewpoints, you have to keep in touch with them. You have to be the person in a moment of weakness where you have to be a guiding hand that brings them back to the real world. So that's something you definitely have to do. So like one of the worst things you can do is just, you know, tell them like, fuck off. All right, you're crazy. I'm cutting you out. And I think that that's probably what's going to happen. Yes, shared delusion. Exactly. The shared delusion of like, you know, Donald Trump's the greatest thing that happened to America, and that like everyone was against him and the deep state was against him. And like even the rhinos left them behind. Like, some of these guys are going to recognize that the world is not on fire under the Joe Biden administration, and you have to be there for them when that moment happens, and you have to be able to pull them back into the real world. But of course, a significant amount of people are going to be further emboldened in their own delusions and seek. I mean, it just like look for different avenues to go down with their conspiratorial way of thinking. It's like ex-Mormons, and I know I have a lot of them in here, and I apologize for saying this, but studies show that ex-Mormons and more religious people, for example, or like isolated religious communities, people that get out of those isolated religious communities are more likely to get caught in like multi-level marketing schemes. And of course, that number is even higher for people that are inside religious communities, where it's because the way that like you have conditioned your brain into believing, like trained yourself to believing certain dogmas, that takes a lot of time and effort and energy to get rid of, to work against. And it's kind of hard to do that. And if people prey upon that, if there are people out there who literally purposely prey upon that and seek you out and try to sell you on something, they can successfully do that. And yeah, like Amway or Herbalife and shit like that. I live in Utah. That's unfortunately true. RIP grandparents that are still brainwashed. Yeah, so it's really sad. You have to constantly be aware of that. You have to constantly work against that. And the same goes for these QAnon circles. Like QAnon grifters that are at the forefront, like the influencers, have been doing this shtick for a very long time. They know what works, which is why in a moment of great doubt, when a world-changing event happens, that's their bread and butter. That's when they fucking hit you. Like when COVID happened, you saw a massive spike in QAnon shit. And the reason why you saw that is because these guys weren't just like truthers about, like they were flat earthers, there were anti-vaxxers, there were, you know, crystal people, there were Alex Jones types that believe that, you know, there's a intergalactic space pedophiles. And what they did was all congregate around loving Donald Trump and supporting Donald Trump and building this narrative around QAnon that was really effective, especially because they overtook the pre-existing misinformation networks that the Trump campaign and numerous other people used in the election cycle. So there was a want for it. There was a need for it, especially on places like Facebook. And these guys were like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to take over this. I see an opening in this avenue. Maybe they didn't even know that they were doing it on purpose, but they still did. They took advantage of that cognitive dissonance. They took advantage of the delusions that these people shared. And that's how they fucking snuck in their nefarious and oftentimes horrible ideologies. Now here, for all the newbies that are here right now, here I believe in what is known as dialectical materialism. I believe that the world is designed in a way where we shape our culture on top of our commodity production. Okay? And the way that capital is created and cultivated, okay? And I root my worldview around that. The most basic way that I can describe it is your boss, if you've ever worked in a job, your boss and you have contradicting opinions. No matter how smart you think your boss is, or no matter how stupid your boss is, and a lot of bosses are fucking stupid. Your boss could be a manager working on behalf of the store owner, or your boss can be literally the store owner, the capital owner in that circumstance. Their interests are getting you to work for as many hours as they possibly can get you to work for as little pay as possible. Your interests are to work as little hours as possible for as much pay as you can possibly get. Now, that's an inherent contradiction between you and your boss. I believe personally that societies outside of like primitive accumulation and primitive communist societies where people just shared fruits and hunted and gathered together. Outside of that, since the advent of division of labor and whatnot, I think that organization has that inherent contradiction has existed, and a lot of our society is designed around it. Okay, the simplest way I can put it. You and your boss have conflicting values or contradicting interests. And of course, the way that profit gets distributed, which I'm not going to get into too far, but because of the way that profit gets distributed at the top and it accumulates at the top, they have a lot more power. They have a lot more power than you do. They have a lot more influence than you do. And what they do with that profit is they build institutions. They build colleges. They build schools. They pay politicians. They build entire democratic systems. They build media empires. And all of those legitimate institutions that are polluted by well-intentioned people educate you and normalize the cruelty that you experience, the oppression that you experience under this current system. So when I see something shitty, when I see people suffering in the world, when I see problems, I usually go back to that. It's a quite simplistic term, but I go back to that inherent contradiction and how our entire system has designed around it, or designed itself around that. And all of our legitimate institutions tell you that this is normal and this is good and this is the only way, and any other way of reorganizing the economy beyond this is immoral, evil, and also has led to devastating results. One way to do this, of course, is to say communism is responsible for 100 million deaths, like the big black book of communism talks about. while simultaneously saying, well, all the capitalism deaths, all the deaths that occur under capitalism every single year, just as a consequence of famine alone, 14 million deaths. Well, that's just individuals failing to survive. When someone dies under communism, they die because of communism. When someone dies under capitalism, they die because, well, you know, they just couldn't do better. They couldn't bootstrap it. And most people think this way, and they never recognize that. And I'm not even saying that, like, communism is better. I'm not even saying that. The USSR, if I had the opportunity to live here right now, or the USSR, I would choose here right now. There are certain things that the neoliberal, capitalist Western nations have been able to offer the citizens that are fortunate enough to live inside of their borders that I think is an absolute necessity. The feeling of liberty. The fallacy, or not the fallacy, but like the false notion of choice. Like you have a liberty to choose a bunch of different products. You know, like this diversity of products that you can choose. That sort of stuff. Commodity consumption and commodity fetishization is absolutely something that I think is a necessity even in a post-capitalist world. I'm getting too far into it. My point is, if you don't have a materialist root for how, if you don't ground your perspective on how the world works on any tangible thing in a materialistic capacity, then you're going to have an idealistic notion. Okay, you're going to look at things from an idealistic point of view that revolves around ideology. You know, there's good people and there's bad people, or and they're just good or bad just because the way that they are. Or you know, there's this evil group of people. There's this evil group of people, and they're just evil, and they're controlling the entire world. That's why people believe in these crazy conspiracies. They believe in conspiracies because conspiracies, much like religion, or at least like ancient religion, maybe not like the monotheistic, but the monotheistic religions absolutely have the similar puzzle piece that you need. But religion plays that fundamental role in contextualizing things that we cannot comprehend and we cannot understand. Okay? It has a capacity to organize communities, and conspiracies do a nearly identical thing. It's like ideology. It's like religion. It offers you a puzzle piece. It offers you an explanation, a neatly wrapped and oftentimes incredibly self-centered explanation to things that you cannot comprehend. 9/11. Why did it happen? I mean, this is truly devastating. I cannot believe it. Why did it happen? Well, here's a conspiracy theorist who will tell you why in a gently packaged way, in a neatly packaged format. JFK assassination. Why did it happen? Here's a conspiracy theorist that will tell you, that will give you the answers. QAnon is no different. Donald Trump, a once-in-a-lifetime candidate for the Republicans. How did he become president? Well, we got Russiagate on one side for the liberals to get your daily dose of opium, and we have QAnon on the other side. When the truth, unfortunately, is more boring than that. So, that's why people find themselves lost in the sauce in this way. And I think a lot of people go about their daily lives not recognizing it, or people like Steven Crowder purposely feed into that.
Want to roll over and die? Shall we roll over and die, Bob? Is that what you want? That's not what I'm going to do.
No.
That's absolutely not what we're going to do. People who say that, people right now who are like, oh, it's over. First off, again,